We're not the best in the world. We know that. We want to be the best in the world. How do we fix our development? How do we fix our competitions?
There was a time when you were here when we did consider Super Rugby to be the best franchise professional competition in the world. And I think we had a fair call for saying that when the South African teams were involved.
If you ask them, that's bigger success for them.
Right.
Than playing so many games for the All Blacks. You know, they were capped for the All Blacks, but what they've been able to achieve for their families for the rest of their life and set themselves up, it's huge.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network, is proudly brought to you by Novus Glass. If you're travelling around the country this summer to a local or an international sporting event and you get a chip or crack in your windscreen, and it can happen, as soon as you notice it, Novus it. Windscreen repair or replacement is easy with Novus Glass, 68 branches around the country. So just call or drop into your local branch direct. Whether it's a cracked windscreen from a rogue cricket ball or a chip from a rogue stone on the road, get it sorted with Novus Glass. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, Martin Devlin, Lachlan Wall. We've had this one organised for a little while. What an absolute pleasure it is. I don't know the last time that we actually met and spoke. It probably was only a couple of years or so ago, but it's about time, long time that we caught up. Our man Pat Lam, who is director of rugby, make that, of the Bristol Bears, and I'm going to get you to define that shortly. But before we even start, mate, I just want to go through. Assistant coaches Scotland, Auckland, Blues, Samoa, Connacht, and I hope I pronounced that rightly, Bristol head coach, then director of rugby. And you've been over there for well over a decade now. Congratulations on all the success and welcome back to the show, mate.
Thank you, Marty. Good to see you. Sound the same, look the same. It's good, mate. The water must be good. You're blessed.
Look, you know, this head coach or director of rugby role that you've got, there's a lot of debate happening in New Zealand at the moment about, what Scott Robertson's title is, how he handles all his staff and things like that. So just in your mind, what is a director of rugby? How does that define itself as opposed to being a head coach?
There's two types up here, certainly, and I'm certainly one of the rarer ones. So basically, the director of rugby oversees all the performance staff. He's in charge of the whole rugby program, the vision, the game plan, everything that we want to do. Manages recruitment and so forth. But basically, got heads of department in all those different areas, and then you have your coaching groups. So some teams will then have a head coach. Directors of rugby have a head coach to go and deliver it, whereas and then have all the specialist coaches. And that's what most of them don't go on the field, and they drive that. Some of them just oversee bits and pieces, but no, I certainly my passion is I probably couldn't do this job if I wasn't coaching. So I started as the head coach because I was in charge of all that, and then they realised that actually he's the director of rugby. But I said, you're not taking me away from the field. But I oversee. But the beauty of when you have quality of your assistant coaches, we get aligned on how we want to play, and then you empower them. You pick them because they're the best at what they do, and they get out and do that. But you're overseeing, checking, making sure they're on the right track, helping them, supporting them. But also, you allow them, they're specialists, to do what they do. All you're making sure is the alignment's always there.
How much day-to-day stuff do you do with the players, and how much one-to-one do you have with those players?
Yeah, pretty much all the time. For me, one of my lessons when I was at the Blues, certainly, it was the only job I never interviewed for. I was just handed it, asked, because we had obviously the success for Auckland. Didn't have to do an interview. Just see what you like to do. I said, of course, my home team. I'll take that. And I did it. But when I got sacked from there, I realised then that quickly there's a couple of things I would never do again, and one of them was making sure that I had clarity on what the vision is, what they want to achieve, but also very clear around what I do. And one of the things that since then and going forward, when I've been asked to go into job, I clearly ask what they want to do. But one of the things that I said, if you want me to just coach rugby, you got the wrong guy. What I learned from my time at the Blues is that the three non-negotiables in any coaching role, I believe, from being in very successful teams and blessed to be in some really average teams, is the game, You got to have the game that can beat anyone, and that's not the players, your game. The second is the culture, and the third is the leadership. You can have a brilliant game, but the culture's not great. So, and we all know those sort of examples, and you're never going to get there. Likewise, you can have a fantastic culture. Everyone loves being there, and they love it, but our game's not good enough to win. And the third one, if you don't have the leadership, you're not growing your people, which means that it's not going to last forever. My time at the Blues, there was a team culture, but there wasn't an organisational culture. Right. And so one of the things, certainly when I came to Bristol, and Steve Lansdowne, who's a billionaire, asked me about coming here, I said that I need to oversee the culture, leadership in the game of the whole organisation. So Monday morning, like everyone comes into the building, all the staff, we do a highlights package, we set the tone, the messages, player leadership can share the messages, staff share the messages, and we send off with a really positive message so we're all aligned as a whole organisation. Where I place the operational staff, they're right by the dining room because we built a whole new centre, and the owner allowed me to change it all. And it's set up again because it's one team. Everybody is off the same expectation, because if we're going to be successful, everyone comes under the same umbrella. You can't have one for the team and the staff are doing completely different stuff, and same with the operational stuff. So, and then we have our rugby stuff, so I'm front and centre with that, and then the other coaches look after their departments.
How do you define success? You mentioned that word a couple of times there. Is it just purely results on the field? How much of that? Because ultimately you're in a professional winning business.
100%. Everyone wants to win, but the ultimate thing is starting. It's like, I put an example of me and you are going to the gym, Marty. All right.
Okay.
And we're both at our prime. Yep. Yeah. Like, I would say that I'd probably lift a bit more than you and so forth. Yeah. And I remember when I came up to England and we first started weights and back in Super Rugby, and I was one of the weaker guys, with the weights. It wasn't something that we did, and it wasn't something I was really passionate about. But when I came up to the UK, it was ridiculous how strong they were. But the trainer turned around to me after I left. I had guys, my teammate, my other back row going 19, 20. I'd get on 3, 4. And he said, that is unbelievable. I promise you, Pat, keep coming. I'll get you to 4 next week. And then we'll build our way up. Okay. So basically, he was just compared where you are. So every team compares. So for us, it's like, where are you? What's your team? What's the expectation? And how do you improve that team? All right. And so obviously I picked up Connacht, which was the lowest budget, the lowest players. They were in all 3 competitions in the Northern Hemisphere. All right. But in 3 years, we turned around and won it. And off the back of that, I got asked to come and do this job. A team that was perennial championship team, which is the level down. We got them promoted, and we're now a established premiership team. We've won one of the European trophies, but we haven't won the premiership yet. So I always say only 10 or 12 or 14 teams can win it. If one team wins, it doesn't make all the others failures. You judge yourself on where you're at. So obviously in New Zealand there's high standards, but I think there needs to be a reality check that New Zealand's biggest advantage that they have now is that they're not the best in the world. They all understand they're not the best in the world. South Africa is clearly the best team in the world. But the advantage that all the other teams have, the reason they've climbed, because New Zealand's always been the best. So everyone's had to get innovative and trying to improve. You know what it's like. If you're first at the top, you have that ability to stay where you are and think. But I think some of the things, not just the public, but I look at some of the things I'm hearing in the New Zealand Rugby Union, I believe the behaviour has got to show that we are not the best. So how do we become the best and make decisions to be the best? Because every time I come back, I remember when the England team came down, and I think Severi, Signore, Rico were asked about Tommy Freeman and Mani Fa'ioboso. Who? Don't know who they are. And it was the same when Mills came up to Connacht. He didn't know anyone up here. And then they quickly get up here, and a lot of the New Zealand boys come up here, geez, there's some good players here. So 100%. But in New Zealand, when we're in our world, it's like, this is the best. We expect the best. Why aren't we winning? And of course, that's what we're about. But that doesn't mean, the public are going to be the public. They have high expectations. But when I look at the New Zealand Rugby Union, I think they got to realise, when I look from afar and I can't see anyone in NPC games, and Super Rugby, I don't see a full stand. I think even the Crusaders now don't have many people. And whereas up here, the crowds is big crowds. But I look at that and I think something's seriously wrong with the game. And I just feel that, but if you come from a position of, we're not the best, we need the best, and then make decisions accordingly, it can be our advantage, New Zealand's advantage.
I 100% endorse what you're saying there. I get so frustrated at especially the social media messaging, the marketing and the advertising around New Zealand, around the All Blacks, around our rugby. There's no humility to it. It's this rah-rah trip that, we're this global travelling circus and we are the best. We aren't the best in the world, and unless you firstly acknowledge where you are, then you can't actually move from that position and actually get better. I think there's been a smugness and a complacency there. I'm not saying from Razor and the players. I'm just saying that I agree with you, the attitude, and it's not any secret, Pat, that rugby is really struggling in this country from club rugby, and you'll know this because you'll speak to people who find that really tough at the moment. Trying to get the money to get the kids to get to actually play, trying to get a club rooms open and volunteers to come along. So yeah, there is a hell of a lot of work to do. But again, it's got to be acknowledged first, and then once you actually are honest with yourself, then you can actually make changes. When you signed that 5-year extension, how much confidence does that give you when all of a sudden you've got that security? How much does that change your headspace about how you do your job?
I think, as I said, like what happened, my situation at the Blues, I knew that no matter what, I've got to be really, really clear with the main decision makers. So I was the Irish Rugby Union, and we established exactly what they want, what I'm going to do, and I had a really good relationship with them, and they extended my contract. But because we won, a lot of other teams around the world came in, and I established my relationship with Steve Lansdowne, the owner. And that was really important. So I probably didn't need the 5-year extension. He asked me for it, but I probably didn't need it. It was just, it certainly gave security to my family and my children and stuff. But the big one was our relationship. That my favorite words from his is whenever I feed back to him, he goes, as per our plan. And I think he wants to win, don't get me wrong, but he also wants to do it in the way that we discussed, the way we play rugby, growing the Bears. He changed it to Bristol Bears, which was controversial, but our fans were female. The growth of young people, female, watching the Bristol Bears now is just completely changed from this. So we understand where we're going. So I feel like, and the other thing that's different, where I coached in New Zealand, you have players all heading off to different teams, and you bring them back. When I sign a player for 3 years, besides international rugby, he's going to be mine for 3 years and stay in our culture and grow. So that's all of these things are certainly a big difference from where I was.
You can't speak about your cares and concerns about New Zealand rugby and everything, I don't believe, without having something in your heart that says maybe there comes a time when you'd like to come back here and maybe put to good use everything that you've learned. Is that still a possibility? Is there a chance that we see you back here at some stage? I know that you've got grandchildren pending and everything else, and there's lifestyle things, but do you have that burning in you? You'd love to come back here and have another crack at this, maybe even go for a chance at the All Black coaching job at some stage?
I think the biggest thing is, like, as you grow and older and experience, it's not about a job, it's about the right job. And the things that's what I learned from that. I've been offered a few jobs, a few international jobs, but I look at it and go, first thing, what do they have? What are the resources? Can they actually deliver what you're going to do? And if the answer is no, I wouldn't take the job. So it all comes down to being on that same page and actually being able to deliver what on both ends. I know that I can deliver what I'd say, but I want to know that, do I believe in what this team, country are trying to do, and are they actually making decisions? Is their behaviour to make sure that they're doing that, or is it just we want to be the best, we want to win, but there's no substance behind it? That's one thing I advise a lot of coaches, and that's why a lot of people say, would you like to go to the next level? I said it all depends on which job it is, and all of those sort of questions need to be answered, otherwise it's going to break down somewhere.
Let's talk about Bristol. I've got so many questions for you. I want to start with this premiership and then the URC, the top 14, the Champions Cup and everything else. There was a time when you were here when we did consider Super Rugby to be the best franchise professional competition in the world. And I think we had a fair call for saying that when the South African teams were involved. It's completely changed now, and I don't know how much you get to see of it, but it has completely changed without the South African teams in it. And it isn't the same standard now. So just in comparison to the toughness that you're facing every week, the skill of the players, the quality of the players, the depth of talent that you have, all of those things, start with what you're doing up there, and then we'll look at a comparison to what we have down here at the moment.
Yeah, it's we've got players from all over the world, but I think one of the things about the league up here, it's you're playing nearly 30 odd games across the 4 seasons. We start pre-season in July, and then games is pre-season's August, and then we September. We go all the way through, and I think the biggest thing is like the physicality. When I look at I was fortunate again asked to be coach of the Barbars, and we played against the New Zealand 15, and I had 17 South Africans I had with John Dobson from the Stormers, and I was blown away by the size of these guys, but the physicality. And we had a few beers during the week, but we kicked off to 19-0 lead. But it was the physicality that struck me, and that's what the Northern Hemisphere are getting a lot now up here with the South Africans being here. It's the biggest loss to that Super Rugby competition, and for the New Zealanders, I watched some of the body languages of the guys. They were actually hit, and we used to get that every time now, and now it's only with the international scene. I think up here. The quality of the competition, and then we're currently in Europe, so we were down in Wales, and form goes out the window because you're then crossing over to France, Italy, and then into in the 5 nations. So it's I just feel like the styles of rugby differ. From team to team, they have their own. And then the players that have come from all over the world, and the quality of the coaches, you just have so much time to improve. One of the things when I probably look back at, like I was watching NPC, and I was devastated to watch Auckland and the results that was happening there at the old team. But what I looked at there is the fundamentals of the game, not the flash stuff. Your scrummaging, your line out, your lifting, your mauling, catch pass, carrying, all your ball presentation, your breakdown work. Certainly at the top level in New Zealand is great, but when I was looking down, I was thinking, my goodness, what's happening in club rugby? What's happening then in NPC rugby? Because I just saw too many players with watching those games fundamentally poor. There's some really good flashy skills out the back. To me, those are all bonus stuff, but you got to make the fundamentals of the game, really good. And that's where I believe certainly England have closed the gap. The amount of work that goes into the basics of the game is huge.
How does that change, though, for New Zealand now, given the fact that we're never going to have South Africa back in this competition? So we are playing against the very best of ourselves. We're playing against Australia. We've got, obviously, Fiji, and we've got the combined, Pacific Island side in there as well. But, how does that change? How do we raise that bar again? And if we can't, what a concern that is.
Great question, because I hate just complaining or saying things. You need solutions.
Sure.
My solution to the game is there's a couple of things. The first one for me is when I go back to making decisions, certainly for New Zealand Rugby Union, I was always a big believer, do not open the gateway and pick players from overseas, all right? Because you got to protect our competition. But when I look at the competition needs money. Like the NRL, I'm hearing stories of the money that the NRL applying in there. Obviously, my good mate Ali Williams and Auckland football, that's kicked off as well. All of these competing things. And then I hear a lot of mates, and John Afoa's filled me in about club rugby in Auckland and around the country, and a lot of friends have told me they need money. Right, where's the money? This is what I believe should happen. 50 cap All Blacks, all right? To get 50 caps in the All Black team, you have established yourself as a player, as a leader, and in the culture, all right? And which means that, but then if you think of all the All Blacks there that have 50 caps or more, all right? Then look at the wage bill. What do you think the wage bill of all of those guys are?
It's huge.
Let the other countries, like Razzie does, let the other countries take the 50 capped All Blacks, all right, and let them play. And and if they're still good enough, because some of them got 50 caps and probably getting on, but they're not going to get picked anyway. But the ones who are established, so I think of like Scott Barrett. Scott Barrett could easily be playing in Japan, UK, France, just like Razzie's South African Springboks do, and come back straight into the All Black environment because he's part of the establishment of the leadership of that group. He can come and go, all right? Anyone below that, you're still into Super Rugby and you still can't be picked. However, all that money that frees up from those players alone can go straight back into growing that game and the grassroots back into NPC and all of that. I just believe the only thing that's going to bring it through, you need the money to get that development going again. Because without that, it's unfortunately going to just continue to do what we're seeing at the moment. And there is talent, 100%, but you've got to develop that talent. Otherwise, they're heading off to other sports.
New Zealand Rugby might counter that argument by saying, hey, look, it's hard enough when we lose our stars at the moment. We've got Adi Savia again playing up in Japan. Scott Barrett's on a sabbatical, and I was talking to Avon Lee, CEO of the Hurricanes, who's just stepped down after 10 years. I think you know him too, Pat, a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying that, when, the difference in gate takings, 1,000, 2,000 at the gate makes a huge difference. This is how much those Super Rugby franchises are struggling. If you get the Chiefs coming to town and there is no Damien McKenzie, that makes, people make a decision as to whether they're going to pay their money and go along or whether they're just going to sit and watch it. So you let some of these stars go in those 50 Test All Blacks. What does that do for that competition and eyes on the prize? They always present this argument as one reason why they can't let that happen.
Yeah, but they're talking about opening the gates and picking from everywhere. All right. If you look at how many guys in that All Black team actually have 50 caps. So you're talking about probably the 3 Barretts. You're talking about Cody Taylor. You're talking about Adi Savia. If those, but I'm not sure if Damien McKenzie has 50 caps.
I think he does
yet.
now. Yeah.
But the thing is, like when I was there, Damien McKenzie, he wasn't there yet. But if you get your structures and your competition, you need the conveyor belt below. You need the development of these players. It's not about just having players. You've got to have the quality of the coaching. And then you talk about they're relying on gate takings. What they need to be relying on is money from the RFU, from New Zealand Rugby Union. They need that money, just like the teams up here. And so that money can still... So those guys playing for the All Blacks and All Blacks winning in the test matches and so forth, bringing in the revenue. But instead of that revenue going into paying those players that we talked about, they still put it back in and use that money, and that's what will give their game a chance to grow. If we're hoping that, that if you just imagine what that number would be of all of those 50 All Blacks, write that number down and think, how good would that money be back into the game? You'll see the difference. And so I'm not saying that open the door. You have to get 50 caps. And some of those guys, you ask, is the next player coming through? Suddenly you find, it's like England. England have that ability to pick outside, but suddenly the next player goes, these Jack Willis playing for Toulouse, or actually Henry Pollock's come through, Ben Earl, the Curry's there, so they don't pick him, even though he can be picked from France. But he's freed up money for that club as well. So, and South Africa are doing it perfectly well too. Yeah, where they got their main players going and coming back. And one thing I will say about the All Black team, what I am excited, because I went around in Wales, I caught up and watched the team and looked at it, and I haven't seen a lot of these players. My goodness, there's some depth. When I think of who actually was left behind, by the time that next World Cup comes, the depth of the players coming through. I just think of the second rows when Tupou Vai wasn't up here, and obviously Paddy Tuipulotu. When I saw obviously Fabian Holland first time, I didn't realise how big he was, and then Josh Lord played well. So leading into the next World Cup, there is a really good group of players, but I think we need that conveyor belt coming back. And the only way you're going to keep people interested in rugby is the quality of the coaching, the programs. And to do that, you're going to need money. So you need to free up from the cream at the top. Let the other countries pay for them. They're not gone. They come back and play for the All Blacks. But the next group coming through that will improve the leadership of their provinces. So taking Adi out of Hurricanes or Moana Pacific or whatever it is, or the Barretts out, the next group get a chance to lead. And we're still talking with guys who played 20, 30, 40 caps for the All Blacks, still there leading. And that will grow that, but we bring the next crop through. Yeah. That's where will be a natural death if we don't address it.
So it's like the Ghetto rule, or what they had in Wales, I think was 60 caps or something like that, wasn't it? And just in your mind at the moment, how many places are available? If we were to do that and we did have, say, 10 or 12 names, would all of those All Blacks get places? I mean, do teams have enough room in their squads to be able to take another, say, 12 quality New Zealand players right now?
No, not everyone, because everyone's pretty picky with their because we've got salary caps up here. In France, there's a bigger market and so forth. But I think people are quickly realising that paying lots of money for just one player. Some owners want it, but others realise the quality of what's coming through. So it's getting, for me, one of the reasons I brought Stephen Luatua, Charles up here at Semir Drydras because I knew the players. I knew the difference they would make to our group. They're legends in this club because of what they did off the field and how they changed expectations, standards, training standards.
Right.
They were big in the leadership group and that sort. And our owners saw that. They didn't just come get paid to come and play rugby. And I wouldn't want to, like I'm pretty conservative with what we pay for players, but I wouldn't want anyone to come up here just because of a name. I need to know a bit more if they're going to add influence within the group. So it all depends on the club. Certainly Japan seems to have, and France have the bigger budgets.
You look at Stephen and you look at Charles, and one of the questions I got written down here, one of the very first questions I had was simply, how good was Charles? How many games could he play for the All Blacks? How good an All Black could he be? And with Stephen as well, and I just think that these are two guys that had so much potential, and for whatever reasons that they didn't play as many games in the black jersey as perhaps they could have and should have, and we actually wanted them to. How good could Charles have been in an All Black jersey?
Charles could have been, 100% could have been one of the best, and he knew that. But I think the bigger thing is, you look at Charles now, he's got 4 children now. He is well, him and Stevie are well set up. It's the same, I don't know if you remember boy Joe Takori, Census Johnson, when I was coaching Auckland. These boys weren't even in the Super Rugby picture. Chris Vui, these boys all came up, the legends in Toulouse now. These boys, Samoan boys, who really... they didn't have the same sort of opportunities as far as education in the sense of other jobs away from rugby. They're well set up and they've looked after their families, their parents. They bought their parents' houses.
Fantastic.
And stuff. So if you ask them, that's bigger success for them
Right.
than playing so many games for the All Blacks. They were capped for the All Blacks, but what they've been able to achieve for their families for the rest of their life and set themselves up, it's huge.
Looking at the All Blacks and what you saw over the Northern Hemisphere tour and where we're at the moment, look, much wailing and gnashing of teeth back home, as you'd expect. When the All Blacks lose, of course, we all go absolutely to tropo over it. It's not the 10 wins, it's the 3 losses a lot of us are concentrating on, and the manner of those losses and the worrying manner of those losses to England in the second half, the lack of leadership, the fact we have these dull patches in games, we get leads, we can't hold them, we tend to go off the boil for 20 minutes or so. That's just my impression, just as a fan watching it. What are your thoughts on where we're at the moment, our team?
I think it's one of those things where we used to be a country that were brilliant between World Cups, and then we'd fail there at the World Cup, and then I think also when I look at all the changes and we had that foundation, that consistency of obviously Graham, then to Shag, to Fozzie and so forth, I think the landscape has completely changed in the game, and with with all the competitions we talked about, technology, finances, and so forth. I mean, you look at the world table, and I know people are upset about the Grand Slam, but besides Wales, compared to before, the quality of the home nations is another level. I think when I look at the All Blacks, I think Razor has shown that he's an outstanding coach, and what he's achieved. He's achieved a lot more than so many coaches have done where he's gone. I think one of the areas that I would say that he's growing is huge depth as we prepare for that next World Cup. Then you look at the games that they lost, and I think, like, one of the things they have had the injury issues and so forth. I think we've got to also acknowledge part of the reason the reason the England team is so strong is the quality of the Premiership, the quality of all the schools rugby academies coming through. That was my point, that if I look at NPC and I look at Super Rugby, it's not the preparation ground it was anymore for the next level coming through. What I would say this is, I know there was chat about the quality of the coaching team and so forth. I think the biggest thing is, I think one of the things that was archaic and New Zealand had is and I heard it still exists, because I was part of it in 2007 when Robbie, I was mentored by Graham Henry and everything, and obviously we had a great year of Auckland, and Robbie Deans rang me out of the blue, and asked me if I could go be his assistant coach for the All Blacks.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And because he needed to put his name into the hat. I think it was myself and I'm not sure who, with Vern Cotter or whatever. And he talked about, the Polynesian factor and stuff like that. Now, I've never coached Robbie Deans. I mean, that's crazy. He's going to the All Black job. He's asking me. But the reason he was doing it, because New Zealand Rugby Union want to know what's going to be your coaching team and you set up before they pick it, And then I heard, I know Jamie and Razor went for it, right? But instead of going after, right, they decided Razor is the best coach, they made them still do the same thing.
Yeah, Fozzie the same.
The best attacking coach, 100%. And I couldn't believe it when it's Tony Brown, And naturally Tony went with Jamie, but Tony's also good mates with Razor. The New Zealand Rugby Union, because of that setup, they could have easily gone to Tony Brown and said, right, what they should have done is choose who they believe is going to be the best guy to lead. Okay, it's now Razor. Okay, now Razor. Off the back of it, we want who do you think is the best defence coach? Well, let's interview and find out who's the best attack coaches from everyone in New Zealand and everyone around the world. Just go methodically through it off the back of it, So in the end, Razzie saw it. Like, I know Razzie well. Bang, let's get Tony Brown. 4-year deal in front of him, and New Zealand Rugby Union didn't took Tony Brown. And the worst thing that's happened, for New Zealand, the best thing for South Africa, because I always said this, I've been up here and I had coached and know a lot of the South African boys, and they're impressive men, all right? All they needed was to play a bit more expensive rugby, be able to tip. Like, mate, some of the English guys I've got here, I talk about 1,000 touches a week. We do so much skill work. I asked the owner to build a barn so we can work inside, improve the skills. People are waxing lyrical about our attack game. But you look at the players we've got a lot of rejects. We just upskill them. And I said, if the South Africans ever get upskilled to play a game outside the big bosh, which they're good at, watch out. And Tony Brown, a Kiwi, All Black, has gone in there, and he's doing a brilliant job for them. And you can just see it. You're watching everything going, that's Tony Brown, and you know what he's teaching and know he's going. Look, I look after our team attack, and so I've got a big interest in attack. And, New Zealand missed out on that, because of their behaviour, that they still believe they are the best in the world, rather than start making some changes in some of your behaviours, because I was shocked that still happens when it happened years ago. Start making changes to go, right, we're not the best in the world. We know that. We want to be the best in the world. How do we fix our development? How do we fix our competitions? How do we ensure that the All Black coach has the best possible coaching? Because only reason I'm saying that is because everyone's complaining about it.
Yeah.
But why don't we look at that and look at everything and don't be afraid to make decisions, because, we used to complain about the English, and it still happens a little bit up here, that they're the hardest people to change history. Oh, that's the way we've always done it, Whereas certainly sometimes I feel, and what I hear, that New Zealand Rugby Union is still doing some of the same decisions that they did many years ago. And I'm just on some things. Of course, we change things, but we got to look at how do we make New Zealand the best team, and we're not happy with second. And we got to make those things. But certainly, if they feel like the coaching team that Razor needs, a stronger coaching team, well, give them every possible chance to do that.
A couple more things and we'll let you go. Look, I could talk to you for another couple of hours, but I know that you're a very busy man. Pat, Samoa just made it into the World Cup by drawing with Belgium, and I go back to 1991 and that beautiful side that you played in, that made the quarterfinal and just absolutely delighted the world, and all the noise from World Rugby or whatever they were called at that stage about how we're going to reinvest in this and we do that and we're going to put money in and everything, and we both know now, we look at it, I don't know how much money or what investment, but it doesn't look like a lot, and Samoa is struggling to make the World Cup after, well, that's 30-something years we've been talking about this, right? It just... I don't know. I'm so glad that your team's there, but I still feel really disappointed that I don't think anything's changed at all. And why hasn't it changed? And why aren't the Pacific Islands this was meant to be the new arm of world rugby. These countries producing so much talent. If we invested in them, what they actually bring to the international game and everything else. Are you as disappointed that it still hasn't actually? There's nothing being manifested in front of us about this. Nothing in concrete.
I believe World Rugby's doing all they can. I really do. I think it's dangerous to give money to some clubs, some countries, because where does that money go? I think I look at Samoan rugby, I feel for the players. We have some of the best talent in the world playing everywhere. We saw in the last World Cup all the players stepping up and wanting to go. But then the key here, and this is why, is the key is the governance and the infrastructures they put in place. All our players are playing at the highest level, all right? So they expect when you go in, it's like one of the demands that I want our environment to be like high performance. And I drive the staff as their standards as well, is that, this is not a social club we can just sign up and join. You know, it's a club where you get selected, you decide to come, or Samoa's a country that you're going to play for. Those guys expect the best of the best as far as resources, quality of coaching, physio staff. They don't need to worry about, logistics. They shouldn't be worrying about, their flights coming in. They're having to pay for their flights, where their gear is, all of that stuff. That should all be sorted. It's why when Samoa asked me if I'd get involved, I said, look, when I consider it, the only way I'd get involved with Samoa at the moment would be if it's just the Barbarians. I get 1 week to put together a team. If I got the team, just give me 6-8 weeks for the team before a World Cup. All right, 3 or 4 games. I'll get the best players because we'll end up getting the best players because of the World Cup. I'll make sure that I've got the best management team possible. So even when I go to the Barbarians, I take some of my staff or key guys because I know what players are like because I've been there. Is that in those 90s, I mean, our leadership team, myself, To'o Vaenga, and a few of the other senior boys, Mark Birtwhistle, Peter Fatts at that time initially, and then us, we used to really get stuck into management. If they walk in late, we would hammer them. Our standards were massive before professionalism came in, and that's what they need. And I just feel like the stories you hear and when I talk to some people at World Rugby, where is some of that money going and why isn't that in place? Like I feel for Tusi Pisi. Like Tusi was a great player up here in Bristol, skills coach, starting his coaching journey not long after playing, but to be the head coach of an international team with the resources that he has, it shows you where I know a lot of people rang me, we were going to apply for the job, some quality coaches, but then they all stepped away from it. Because again, comes back to the governance and what's going on. I know that's not going to make me popular, but it's for me, it's one of the things that was always the issue. Look at Fiji, and now Fiji have got their act together. Mick Byrne's doing a brilliant job. They got the Drua, and everything's in place for those guys. And I think that's where the main thing is. And I think World Rugby can keep giving money in, but they need to take control of the country, I reckon.
I thank you so much for your time, mate. Covered a whole lot of stuff there. You're in a hell of a great place. It'd be so wonderful to see you back here, obviously. But whether or not that happens, who knows? But you've made a brilliant career for yourself. Congratulations on that. I'm so happy for you, and that the family is also happy and healthy, and you've got grandkids, as I said earlier, on the way and things. It's been superb to catch up again, my friend.
Thank you, Marty. It's amazing the older you get. And I remember when I turned 50, my wife had 50, 50, 50 everywhere. And I came down, I went, you know what? This is the most enjoyable time of my life. You look back at life and, my kids are 18 to 33, 5 of them. That's my playing. And so I'm really getting a buzz of working with these playing group now because I see them like my sons. I have a sofa. I have 2 armchairs in my office. There's the normal chairs to talk rugby. If they sit in these one, we're talking life.
Right.
And it's amazing when you invest. It's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Marty.
Big thanks from the Devlin Sports Podcast team to the Novus Glass team for sponsoring this episode of DSPN. Novus Glass loves backing Kiwis and supporting New Zealand. In fact, every Novus Glass job helps plant native trees. And so far, they've donated over 20,000 native trees. So if your windscreen gets chipped or cracked, it's your chance to make a difference and back the team doing good in New Zealand. Just call your local Novus Glass branch direct. Notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.